society as a whole.
And why not? It is the most important stakeholder in the game. The Indian government, after this realization, has made it mandatory for corporates to spend 2% of their revenue on CSR activities.
Yes, initiatives such as pro bono work, philanthropy, and environmental awareness add significant value to a company, and if the program is well executed, the benefits far outweigh the cost.
So why not have a look at how the largest stakeholder becomes the biggest gainer?
To discuss the theme for the evening, society, the largest stakeholder in the collaboration, may I call upon stage Mr. Jaideep Ghosh, partner, KPMG Management Consulting India, to share his insights.
This was a good video, in fact. But first I must thank the director and faculty and especially Mr. Partha for asking me to be here and to have to witness this wonderful group of people, all of you here, as well as get to know the kind of work that's happening here, which honestly many of us in the industry may not be fully aware of the kind of quality work that's happening in IIM Kashipur, as well as some of the newer, premium B schools that have come up in India. So I think, thank you very much for asking me to be here. We'll come to the topic, but since this video was shown, so let me share some thoughts. So many of us actually arrived last night, and we were staying at at Kashipur, and then this morning we had come here. So I actually came here a bit late. That was not because for everybody I wanted to have a look at the campus. So I just wish now many of the guests have seen on the video. So and I didn't really know that this would be here. This video would be here. So let me having come so close, just about a kilometer or so. So I went there. First thing I saw was there was a narrow lane going on the right hand side, and there was a board saying hostel number 2. And that looked like going into some kind of Greenland or something like that. Then I kind of moved a bit forward in the car, and then I see on the left hand side some other education institutes were there, which I thought would be the IIM, but it turns out to be something else. And then on the left hand side I see hostel number 1, and then I think auditorium, but there is no sign of the main institute as such. Then I see a narrow bridge with sort of warning written there, bridge is weak and drive slowly, etc. So I thought, no, I must have come on a wrong way, or maybe that hostel also kind of includes the institute there. I took a U-turn, then realized something is wrong. Let's try, getting into the small bridge. So we went that, and of course on the right hand side, I could see the board, and managed to get in by telling the security that I've come for it just to have a short look, etc. Brief visit. So all of you are here. So what struck me later on is that this kind of, which it is good that this video was shown, especially for all of other persons, by and large for the visitors here. So what struck me is that when any institute, whether IIM Kashipur or any institute of this size, this magnitude, is set up, the initial setup is often very, very modest, small, and basic in nature. And then later on becomes, a far larger institute in size, in stature, and everything. But the folks you here, the students and the faculty member and the staff here, this kind of, warmth and life which you are getting in a fairly, makeshift, not state-of-the-art facility. The future batches from, I believe, the new campus would be coming up in 2015 or thereabouts. I think the new batches will never get to see what you're going through. So that in itself is a rich experience. So if you're in one of the established institutes, I think you should still think about this, because once it's a big campus, I believe 200-acre campus, the state-of-the-art things, may not be in 2 years, maybe 5 years, 6 years, then it's pretty much, everything is very streamlined, standard, so on and so forth. And the batch size now, that you've also tripled your batch size between the previous batch and this one, but I believe it's going to be around 100, 110 the following year. So when you're in a smaller batch size, you tend to know everybody by name. Larger, IIM, nothing wrong, but batch size of 200 plus in the PGP course in each year, it's the warmth and the close proximity is not there. So that's, I think, something which you should cherish, this kind of experience and the kind of things which were shown on the video here. It's really an experience which, is to treasure. Faculty would remain here. I've gone through another, similar experience not very long back. I do, visit some of the other, IIMs and other business schools. So the faculty would, of course, continue and they would get to see the new campus here. Some of you may come back sometime as an alumni meet and so on and so forth, or to visit the campus. But many of you may not, come back in the next 5 years, 10 years, something like that. I think the staff, the staff who are really mostly local, they continue to stay here. They kind of, carry the tradition and they remember these things. So when the batch size is 30, 40, 50, 60, the security guard would know all the students by name. But when batch size is 400, 500, and then you add on FPM, agribusiness, this course, that course, then kind of, that person gets lost. So I think that's the point which I didn't plan to, but after seeing the video, I couldn't resist speaking about. Now the topic, which I believe is society as the largest stakeholder for collaboration. So, honestly, I got to see my mistake, the entire chain of emails which were coming from Institute just about day yesterday. And then I realized it's a 45-minute slot and it's also a keynote address, and this is the topic. So I really didn't know what to do, and while I'm standing here, I don't think I'm very clear on what the subject is, because in terms of society, collaboration, stakeholder, these words are there. So I'll really, not speak much about the corporate angle of the society, but in terms of larger, the societal angle, in terms of the country, state, world, globe, and so on and so forth. But just touch upon briefly on the corporate context. There will be panels after this. I would really, request the panelists to speak more about corporate social responsibility, CSR, as was mentioned in the introduction, based on certain criteria in the recently this companies act, that almost all companies would have either 1,000 crore net worth or 5 crore profit or so on and so forth, and they are now almost like mandated to spend certain amount of their amount on CSR, right? Rather leave that part to the panelists to speak about. Now, in terms of if there are questions, you could, I don't know what's the protocol, but you could, stop me or raise your hand or at the end, or if there are no questions, that's also fine. So I think stakeholders, definitely, if there's a business, if there's a corporate, there has to be a stakeholders. So I'll come to that now. What's a stakeholder and what's society? I did pretty much admitting that I really in a foolish way. I did look up dictionary and Wikipedia, etc. So there are separate definitions. Society, the simplest I remember, if I remember correctly, was saying a group of people with persistent relations among them. So I kind of, in my mind, highlighted the relations part of it. Group of people, yes, but there is a interaction amongst them. Then stakeholders. So I did look through some of the definitions. The usual ones are who has a stake, who has influence. But I think what INSEAD research done pretty long back, almost 8-9 years back, that defines stakeholder as those set of individuals or groups without whose existence, the basic purpose, the business, the corporate or the project, whatever be the subject, ceases to exist. I think I like that definition vis-a-vis the usual ones which are, someone who has a stake or has an interest or has an influence. Those are there. But without stakeholder, business, if that's the subject here, doesn't exist. Similarly, without stakeholder, without the people, without society, governments don't exist, states don't exist. That's the broad theme of stakeholder. Now, at the risk of sounding slightly theoretical, let's look at any business, and there are stalwarts here, senior, we've done, really explain them a bit briefly, but at least cover them. And then some of you I can see taking notes, so do take notes. This is more from INSEAD research and not my proprietary thinking. So I think in terms of societal stakeholders, there are broadly 3 categories. One is your national stakeholders, in terms of in-country stakeholders. Second is your global or international stakeholder. And third would be your institutional stakeholders. So who are these? National stakeholder, okay, any corporate, any business, is in a particular country, so there would be stakeholders. And these stakeholders categories would overlap. Someone who's an employee is also a customer, can also be a supplier, and can also be an affected or party or so on and so forth. But we work in the national, region, and it's true for multinationals also who work in a particular country. That's one. International stakeholders, increasingly, it's got extremely critical and important. As we've seen the proliferation of the communication technologies, and I can speak next 1 hour on that, but I would resist doing that. As connectivity has improved, which has changed lives of people, you see that international and the global stakeholders are becoming immediately more important. Starting from a small medium enterprise to a restaurant to a multinational, anything goes wrong in one part of the world, it's immediately known to the remaining part of the world through various social media and other such electronic formats, which makes it extremely difficult for corporates to operate. So it's not insulated, isolated in a national boundary anymore. Anything happens here is known to the globe, almost kind of instantly or very, very quickly. So that's where the role of international stakeholders come. And we've seen how businesses are managing those stakeholders also, in terms of actually using the social media platform and electronic communication media to develop their business and further their interests. And there are tons of examples of Volkswagen using LinkedIn and somebody, Facebook used by Cadbury and Coca-Cola. And so on, the list of Red YouTube, allured by Red Bull Brain and so on and so forth. That's one. Third is the institution, which is your NGOs, your industry associations, like for instance India Confederation of Indian Industry or similar other industry associations. And there are several of them depending on. So each industry would have multiple industry associations, individual pressure groups, specific specific purpose institutions, like if there is a infrastructure project coming up, there would be a local pressure group. Probably the issue could be a acquisition of land or resettlement, rehabilitation, or building of a dam or something like that. Those are the stakeholders there. These three, just to recap, are the national, international, and institutional of three societal stakeholders within which the business has to operate necessarily. Then it's a more easy one, which I think you would probably be studying regularly in many of your courses, and there are senior members from the industry and faculty here who could also contribute to the next session, panel discussion. Is more in terms of your shareholders being the stakeholders, internal other stakeholders, which could be your employees and so on and so forth, and then external shareholders, which could be your media, which could be your customers, of course, vendor groups, suppliers, and so on and so forth. And these would overlap, as I said, across different categories. This is by and large, the entire stakeholder framework as was researched by INSEAD, and in that context, a business has to operate. Now, CSR, etc., we can discuss, as I said, later on. But I just wanted to, my thoughts were more on a larger plane, going beyond the corporate environment. What sort of society and how society has influenced the general, state of the economy, the state of the country, the political environment, so on and so forth. That's where I started thinking of what should I speak, just about 2 days back. And what came to my mind, and this is my unedited thinking, nothing that I was prepared before that, was that how revolutions worldwide, how revolutions worldwide have, been fueled by society, by the largest set of people, and how those have impacted the, the state of the country and so on and so forth. So basically, the background is does the government, does the authorities, do they recognize the society in their, decision making, in their policies, or is it something which is taken, more or less granted? That's where I'm coming from. So when people want change, do they really have to come to the street and put a big banner like we won't change, or is something which the governments and the states and the authorities can, anticipate before and for the larger benefit of society? So I'm actually now moving, ladies and gentlemen, from the corporate angle which I mentioned and I request the panelists to cover, to the larger angle which is in terms of how governments and countries and nations are shaped and built by societies. What came to my mind is also some of the uprisings that we have seen worldwide, which historically there have been, several uprisings in the last many centuries, but if we look at the last 100 years, there have been a few, and the more recent times it could be, the breaking up of Soviet Union, which was broken into about 14 countries in Europe, revolution in Nepal, at least twice, if not more. Tibet, which is going on since last more than 50 years, and we can cover that and some of these things. But what is more recent is so-called Arab Spring. So I would prefer, the students are aware of Arab Spring, right? Yeah. So if not, to ask me, I'm not necessarily I would know all the answers, but someone in the room, one of your co-students or senior members may have that answer over here. Essentially, when I look at Arab Spring, they started with Tunisia. One fine day in 2010, December, somewhere, people started, actually coming onto the road and the street and started kind of protesting, which finally led to the, fleeing of Abedin bin Ali, the president, and he sought refuge in Saudi Arabia. That's one example of where people, the society actually influenced the change of government. Now, they're not doing that well after makeshift government was formed, but probably people are better off than in the previous regime. But the case here, which I would like to point out and is relevant to the topic which was set up by, given to me, is the case of Egypt. So Egypt actually, most of us know, there have been multiple things happening. Right? If you look at it carefully, and this is I do have some interest in this Middle East and West Asian politics. I tend to watch more of Al Jazeera TV nowadays. I find vis-a-vis many of the Indian channels where mostly you have 10 people on different windows and the anchor keeps on shouting. So this started somewhere 2 years back. Egypt in 1960s had the same GDP per person, GDP per capita as South Korea. Today it is probably 1/30th or 1/25th of where it is. There are many other such stories. Philippines in 1950 used to be the largest economy in Asia after Japan. Now Philippines is way behind, and now again they're kind of growing. Those stories are there. They started in 2011. Before that 30 years plus, Hosni Mubarak had ruled in his own dictatorship style. Development was not there. Unemployment had grown. There was physical impact on people in terms of retarded growth, higher infant mortality, so on and so forth. Those issues were brewing. The leader, the ruler, failed to recognize. People came on the road, on the street, demonstrations, violence, everything happened. Sooner, the dictator had to move out. Entering the kind of makeshift government came up. Elections were held. Muslim Brotherhood won the election. Democracy, we all in India, largest democracy. Mohammad Morsi was, elected. July 2013, again people come on this road. Or maybe June 2013, this was 3-4 months back. And some first week of July, I was in Africa those days. And the elected president had to, with the aid of the armed forces and generals and all, had to be removed. The point is, again, see the power of society. No, I don't think the society here are very well organized. They are in camps, they are worrying, and they're not very clear about what's happening. Do they have a common purpose? No. There's a huge amount of violence, especially look at Syria, where there are 1 million plus displaced, 100,000 plus killed. But I think there's a power of society that first they made the dictator go, they had elections, and the elected president came into power, and in 1 year nothing changed. In fact, he was seen to be more favoring the Muslim Brotherhood and not for the larger, interests of the people. He was again removed by the power of society. So it's a learning for the business as well. That businesses exist because the stakeholders in the society and the people are extremely important. If there are no customers, no suppliers, no stakeholders, then there is no business. That's why I said I like the definition of NCR. Stakeholders are those without which the main objective or the purpose ceases to exist. So that's one example. And then there are more, Libya, I think everybody knows in terms of the violence that happened there. I don't want to speak much about that. But again, the same example of people through values. That's how I think things work in those parts of the world. So it happened in Tunisia, it happened in Egypt, it happened in Yemen and Libya, where the ruler had to, was replaced, and of course, in this case, was also, lost his life. Milder version, democracy without demand in the Bahrain, which again is, was extremely, with force it was under control. The GCC states, if you look, they are buying peace, clearly. I know they're pretty deviating a bit from the given topic, but the GCC, GCC, basically UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, they are mostly oil rich, or many of them oil rich, so they are buying peace by rolling on Qatar also, by providing a lot of subsidies, providing employment and so on and so forth. Qatar's per capita GDP is highest in the world. If you ignore Liechtenstein and one or two more that European, Monaco, Liechtenstein, if you ignore Qatar has the highest per capita GDP, $100,000 US. Do you know how much is India? Any guess, boys and girls? 17,000. What's the use currency? $1,500, less than that, I think, 1,490 odd. Yeah, it's below 1,500, 1,500 US dollars. Qatar is a small country. Their national population is much less than the expat population. Their per capita GDP is the highest in the world, then close enough to Norway. Okay, one may argue, Qatar is whatever, a million or so, Norway is 5 million, Denmark is 5, Sweden is 10, Finland is 5, so combined Nordic is 25 million, India is 1.2 billion. But look at China, it was similar like us, now it is almost 4 times of India's per capita GDP. So that's the kind of work we have seen. So again, here we can see, coming back to the kind of impact the society has on the democracy, on the country. And Egypt is the classic example. The democratically ruled ruler was removed by society, by the people, just by their opposition, but that's how power is of society as a stakeholder. Nepal revolution closer to home, 2006, second time at least, when King Gyanendra, a lot of his powers were stripped, and again there are issues, there is no united opposition there, but again there's the force, the people of power, people who kind of made it happen. That's where I think the lesson for the dude, I'm trying to for the students, I'm trying to kind of link or draw a simile between the rulers and the authorities here vis-a-vis the corporate. You cannot operate in a isolated vacuum. I think we will produce anything and our business will grow. Those days are gone. The countries which are in the top list nowadays, or countries about whom we speak nowadays, whether it's in Google or Facebook, they were not even existing 10, 15 years back. So maybe market cap wise still we have Walmart and ExxonMobil etc. at the top, but these are not too small. Or even Apple, it's like huge. Tibet movement going on since the 50 years, 1959, 17-point agenda given by People's Republic of China and said to be forcefully signed by Tibet. That's where that's when I think though initially I believe Dalai Lama did agree, but later on he said no, that was forcefully signed. The first point of the 17-point agenda was that the people of Tibet would realign with the mainland China, and the subsequent points were kind of flowing from there. In that context, I think again the people's society, the power of society, that's where it's kind of led to where it is now. Has Tibet been a free country, free land? No, but our people's society is such that, of course, they've created a parallel administration in India, in Dharamshala, but that's how our society is. This is known to all of us, so in terms of purpose and power of people. Let's come to some of the more specific issues, which are not so broad. Like we spoke about Tunisia, we spoke about Egypt, we spoke about Bahrain, we spoke about briefly about I think Yemen as well. But let's take some specific examples which are more issue-based rather than full country or region-based. So this is Bolivia auto war in 2000. Students, are you aware of this? Do you need me to speak? Are you aware? This is in the city of, if I pronounce correctly, Cochabamba, where the basic infrastructure, water was under government control, but it was then, planned to be given out to a consortium led by Bechtel. So, and as a part of the consortium, government wanted to, do a lot of things, invest money, create this infrastructure, etc., etc. Naturally, from a business perspective, without particularly paying attention to the society as a stakeholder, the consortium proposed to increase the rates of a basic, commodity, basic necessity of life, water. That led to this kind of, protests. If I remember correctly, it was not violent as such, but later on, government had to kind of, stop that and renegotiate the terms of the contract so that the business also kind of, doesn't suffer, but people do not necessarily pay higher amounts for that. Similar, I think this is closer home, and I think most of us would be aware that Narmada Bachao Andolan, same again the issue of how people have kind of impacted people as stakeholders, society as stakeholders. And remember, I talked about societal stakeholders, your national stakeholders, international institutions. If you are more of pressure groups, NGOs, they have been instrumental here. Again, the background here. I don't know how many, most of you are youngsters, but this is going on since last, I think, 85 is fine, but somewhere in the, after independence, Narmada flowed through 3 or 4 states, I think MP, Gujarat, and then so on and so forth. I think in that context, this Narmada authority, or whatever, I don't remember now, they suggested that to harness the water, you need to create 35 major dams, 1500 minor dams, and I think some 100 odd intermediate dams, including increasing the height of Sardar Sarovar Dam. That led to all this protest because people were not aware, beyond getting some amount of cash for resettlement, they were not aware of the impact on their day-to-day life, the impact on their livelihood in future. And then of course Major Bhatwar and others, they came and Supreme Court verdict is still not out, so one cannot speak on what's going to happen, but that's one more example of where people have actually, in this case, stopped some of the activities which they thought would impact their lives in a negative way. India means corruption, Anna Hazara, I think you guys are far more aware than what I would decide. I don't want to speak about it. Recent issue again, I mean, forget the fact that the same politicians are doing flip-flop here and there, but the fact as a society, as a large society, the people who would get impacted, have they been consulted properly? I don't know. It's been going on since years. But a decision taken here that way or this way, that way. And have the people been consulted, have they been asked? And there would not be ever any uniform view of the people. But what is good for society, is that being done or not? So that's again a point here. This is, of course, all of us know, more recent in terms of the Delhi unfortunate situation which happened last year. And again, we saw how actual, raw force of people, coming onto the streets and, demanding a few things. Perhaps that time a bit, with immaturity, but definitely that showed how the youth of the country, how the people can make things happen. They can make the political system take note of, their demands, aspirations, protests, so on and so forth on the road at such kind of a raw energy level, which again, at least at the minimum, I would think, facilitated the enactment of a new law, as well as, expedited the judgment and the legal system and so on and so forth. These are some of the examples which, I thought to share with you from my side. Now, I don't know, I tried to cover more at global level, international level, so leaving the corporate social responsibility for the more esteemed panelists to discuss. But the point which I said is any business or anything in fact, whether it's an institute here, you guys are working with the stakeholders. I just came to know today from the director and faculty that you're working in nearby villages, to improve people's lives in terms of helping them with IT education. Some of it was also probably shown in the video here. So we necessarily operate in an environment which has stakeholders. We have to take cognizance of all these stakeholders. We cannot, ignore any one of them, whether it is our national stakeholders, international institutes, NGOs, our own people, employees, and of course, customers is people really take care of the customers very well, but are we taking care of people as stakeholders? If that is done and the larger society is also taken into cognizance in any business and their views are built in your business model, that really is a better way to do business rather than operating in the vacuum, which is now with this kind of information technology proliferation and news kind of flowing from one place to other in immediate few seconds and so on and so forth, becomes very difficult. That's what I wanted to share in terms of society stakeholder. I don't know whether it meets your expectations of whoever has decided on the topic, whether this is what you wanted to discuss here or what we need to speak about, but I just wanted to give you a background of things, how things have happened, the uprising, and one can speak about many more uprising in Eastern Europe and so on and so forth. How people as a force can change things in the world for a better future, or at least what they think is a better future. Thank you for having us, ladies and gentlemen.